South Africa is a multi-party parliamentary democracy in which constitutional power is shared between the president and the parliament. The South African parliament consists of two houses, the National Assembly and the National Council of Provinces, which are responsible for drafting the laws of the republic. The African National Congress, ANC, has been the ruling party in the South African legislature and has maintained this position for over 30 years. The main challenger of the ANC is the Democratic Alliance, led by John Steenhuisen, who gained a majority of votes in the recent general elections. However, this is not our main focus of today. In today's video, we shall be looking at how the current president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, has let down the African National Congress by not obtaining the party's usual victory in this year's elections. But before we continue, hit the like button and subscribe to the New Tourist channel if you haven't done that yet. Cyril Ramaphosa became president of South Africa in May 2018, succeeding Jacob Zuma. His presidency has faced internal challenges, scrutiny, and several other confrontations. The 7th general elections were held on May 29 this year to elect a new National Assembly, as well as the provincial legislature in South Africa's 9 provinces. The ruling African National Congress just got 40% of votes, meaning it does not have a parliamentary majority for the first time in 30 years and will now have to form a coalition with one or more parties. The party won 159 seats in the 400-seat parliament in the recent election, down from 230 in the previous assembly. Note that the African National Congress was created in 1912 and was once led by Nelson Mandela, who was actively involved in the apartheid struggle. Cyril Ramaphosa has called on South African political parties to work together for the good of the country after the loss. It is important to note that ANC is one of Africa's oldest liberation movements that Nelson Mandela once led, since it came to power, ending white minority rule. Some other popular political parties represented in the South African Parliament include Umkhonto we Sizwe MK Party, Economic Freedom Fighters, and the Inkatha Freedom Party. South Africans always expect the parties for which they have voted to find common ground, overcome their differences, and act together for the common good. Officials of the ANC party say they have been humbled by the results and have nothing else to celebrate, and that they will not pressure President Ramaphosa to step down. President Ramaphosa's days might be numbered, either because of the demands of a prospective coalition partner or due to an internal leadership challenge. The ANC has long been plagued by factionalism, with competing power bases and interest within the party. Many activists who fought the apartheid regime are filled with sadness following the ANC loss. Some of them even say that the late President Nelson Mandela in his grave will not be happy about this. At the same time, President Ramaphosa has faced criticisms for not being bold enough in his reforms and for struggling to consolidate power within the factious ANC. He has navigated the party's internal policies more cautiously than his predecessors. Some of the key worries about Ramaphosa's tenure since he became president include failure to decisively address corruption and state capture. This remains a key problem in South Africa. Also, there has been a slow rate of economic reforms and low employment in South Africa under President Ramaphosa. President Ramaphosa has failed to unite the fractions of the ANC party, which was created during the Zuma regime. South Africans blamed Ramaphosa's government for the mismanagement of COVID-19 funds and the frequent electricity shortages in the country. During a meeting of senior officials of the African National Congress, Secretary General Fikile Mbalula highlighted the need to bring other political parties together to solve the deadlock in Africa's most industrialized country before June 16 this year. The 71-year-old Ramaphosa is seeking a second and final term, and the ANC would need help from others to maintain him as president of South Africa, given that the party has lost its parliamentary majority. More than 50 parties contested the elections, with at least 8 of them receiving significant shares of support. The Economic Freedom Fighters Party wants to nationalize parts of the economy, including South Africa's most important gold and platinum mines, and the central bank. Officials of former President Jacob Zuma's MK party say they will not carry out any negotiations with the African National Congress. Any unity government plan from ANC would still have to be taken to other parties, some of whom are more opposed to each other than the African National Congress. There is also a split within the ANC, which isn't completely behind a unity government possibility. It is important to note that the African National Congress has a history of withdrawing support for a party leader in times of trouble, often resulting in their withdrawal. Former President Thabo Mbeki was forced to hand down responsibilities in the ANC as a result of infighting. In its early days, the ANC celebrated that it was a broad church of people dedicated to freedom and democracy, but it now has factions much like any other political party, affecting its ability to solve South Africa's problems. The African National Congress has seen people gradually abandon it, especially among the new generation of South Africans who do not remember apartheid. Some ANC supporters and allies like the National Congress of Trade Unions have cast the white-led Democratic Alliance as a party that prioritizes the interests of the South African white minority over black people, who make up more than 80% of the population. Nelson Mandela ruled as the first president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999 and is widely revered for his reconciliatory approach after the end of apartheid. He famously called for the healing of past wounds and worked on building bridges between radical groups in his country. He emphasized forgiveness, dialogue, and the creation of a shared national identity. Cyril Ramaphosa, on his part, has taken a more forceful stance on addressing these issues. He has been more willing to confront the persistent racial and class divides in South Africa head-on. According to him, true reconciliation requires grappling with the tangible disparities that remain. However, President Cyril Ramaphosa has upheld some values of his predecessor, Nelson Mandela, but faces several challenges in fully realizing Mandela's vision for a more just and prosperous South Africa. Some people argue that he has not lived up to Mandela's legacy. Now let's keenly look at the link between Cyril Ramaphosa and Nelson Mandela. Ramaphosa was seen as a protege of Nelson Mandela, who led the ANC to victory years back. He lost a battle in the party to succeed Mandela as president, even though Mandela was thought to favor him. Ramaphosa instead left politics in the 1990s to become one of South Africa's wealthiest businessmen. He returned to politics in 2012 and was elected as deputy president of the ANC party. He was later appointed as deputy president of South Africa in 2014 under President Jacob Zuma. Ramaphosa later replaced Zuma, who was allegedly accused of promoting corruption practices. His promise to fight corruption and embezzlement hasn't been fulfilled, and here we are on a fall in the ANC majority in the South African Assembly. Many people are now wondering who South Africa's next president will be. The answer is not very evident, since the ANC might lobby with another or other political party to regain its popularity. South Africans do not vote directly for a president. Instead, they elect the 400 members of the National Assembly, who go on to vote for a new head of state within 30 days of general election. There are no presidential candidates as such, but each party leader fronts their national campaigns, and their portraits are printed on ballot papers. The leader of whichever party can muster a majority in the National Assembly and become president after the elections. The South African Constitution does not spell out how a coalition could be formed if no party gets more than 50% of the votes. But assuming that the ANC remains the largest party, smaller groupings can informally agree to support them on a vote-by-vote basis in return for some concessions. Opposition parties in South Africa have hailed the recent election results as a momentous breakthrough for a country struggling with deep poverty and inequalities, but the ANC remains somehow the biggest party. President Ramaphosa's ANC can still maintain its position, but critics and opposition may weaken it. Bear in mind that a deal to keep the ANC in power could involve opposition backing in exchange for either cabinet posts or for more control of parliament, perhaps even the speaker. ANC has promised to create 1 million more jobs over the next 5 years to boost investment and support the private sector in the fight against corruption in South Africa. In some African states, ruling parties rig elections to stay in power or inflate their majority. But in South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa has gracefully accepted that his African National Congress has lost its parliamentary majority for the first time since Nelson Mandela led it to power in 1994. The rise in the number of opposition parties in South Africa is justified by the need for more radical economic reforms, proper governance, reduction in racial tensions, and nationalization of key industries, among others. Whatever the case, do you think President Cyril Ramaphosa will emerge victorious after he lost seats in the parliament? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to The New Tourist. Turn on notifications too so you always get notified whenever we upload our very interesting content. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos.